Hey everybody, Mr. Ono's here. Okay, well, time to talk about the bad movies of 2018, and there's plenty of bad to go around. A lot of bad horror movies, too. Now, like I said in the best of video, if you want to see the entire list of every movie from 2018 that I've seen, check down below in the description for an entire list. Uh, After the Oscars, though, because then you actually see the entire list as ranked. Okay, just to get the dishonorable mention out of the way, it's Insidious: The Last Key. I don't know why there's another Insidious movie. Like, I've seen all of them. This isn't the worst. The second movie is the worst. It's a lot stupider, but this one is just about as scary. That is, it's not. It's just really dull. The acting is okay. The dialogue just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, this is not a movie that needed to exist. I don't know who asked for a fourth Insidious movie. I understand the first movie was popular. I've watched it. I don't know why. It's just another generic horror movie. And this one is just even more generic and uninteresting. If they make another Insidious movie, I'm not seeing it because I don't know who would ever want another Insidious movie after this one. Okay, so now getting into the list proper, our number 15 is Winchester. Honestly, a lot of what I just said for Insidious: The Last Key can apply to Winchester. It's just another generic bad horror movie. Although this one's slightly worse in that it has an interesting setting. The Winchester Mansion is an interesting idea and a really messed up backstory. There's potentially a good few ideas you can make out of that, and this movie just doesn't. It doesn't even try. It's a complete waste of all the talent that is on screen, especially Helen Mirren and Sarah Snook. Honestly, just don't even bother watching this movie. In fact, I'm willing to bet there's another Winchester movie out there that's probably better than this. For number 14, we have yet another horror movie, and a sequel at that. It's Unfriended Dark Web. Now, I'm going to give this movie credit. It's better than the first one. I do like the premise of it a lot more, and the characters aren't quite as stupid as they were in the first movie, but this is still bad. The scares are just as terrible. The acting is just as terrible. And once again, the filmmakers just do not understand how computers work. Like, I'll tell you this right now. I am not joking. There is a moment in this movie where there's a screensaver of sorts of a boat going down a river, and there are windows covering the whole screen. And I'm not kidding. They park them all to the side. They all get parked to the side. No computer does that. Not Macs, not Windows, not Ubuntu. Nothing like that can even be possible. I don't know any computers that do that. That is the perfect example of how the filmmakers here just don't understand how computers work. And so yeah, it repeats a lot of the mistakes from the first movie, but it is a little better. Although the ending is just as bad, though. Okay, for number 13, yet another horror movie, sort of. It's Demon House. Now, if you know about this movie, you know the only two things you know about are these. One, it's by the guy who created Ghost Adventures, and two, Mike and Jay reviewed it on Red Letter Media. In fact, because of Mike and Jay, they're probably the only reason you even know about this movie. And having watched it for myself, I can see why. It is so laughable and utterly pathetic. It is a documentary about the worst haunting experience that the guy who created Ghost Adventures, I forget his name, has ever come across. And it is so hilariously awful. And how scary it tries to be. In fact, at a couple of points in the movie, they actually offer up rational explanations for why people experience paranormal phenomena, like, people are smelling mold and whatnot, or creakings of the house are explained by wind and the house settling, stuff like that. They offer up those explanations, and then they act like you're supposed to forget them. Absolutely pathetic. That's the best word for this movie. Pathetic. Alright, for number 12, we have A Wrinkle in Time. I don't even know what this movie is, guys. I don't know. Like, it tries to handle a lot of ideas, and I gotta give it credit for trying, but trying is not the same thing as doing a good job, because it doesn't. It tries so many ideas and doesn't know anything about how to use any of them. The acting in this movie is just so below standard. All the child actors are just awful. Especially whoever it is that plays Charles Wallace. Like, he cannot act whatsoever. Especially when he gets possessed by the bad guy and he speaks, and like, it's so sad. It's so funny. I guess the directing is fine. I mean, I expect a better from Ava DuVernay, who I know can direct very well. I've seen Selma. I know she's a capable director, so I'll give her props for that. But honestly, everything else holds back. Everything else holds her back. That and the score in the movie, such that there is mostly comprises of a bunch of awful pop songs instead of just having a good score. I don't know. Maybe they should have actually tried to make a good movie. Alright, so that's enough of our detour from horror movies. Let's get back to them. With number 11, Slender Man. Now, I have to admit, thanks to Marble Hornets, I would say it is very much possible to make a good Slender Man movie. I mean, just take inspiration from them. They know how to make Slender Man scary. And so the idea of a Slender Man movie is something I actually wouldn't mind seeing. But the filmmakers are far too late to even make a Slender Man movie now, because he's not as popular anymore. And even if he wasn't, I don't think this movie would be any different, because instead of actually using Slender Man as some evil, malevolent force who maliciously controls anyone he comes in contact to, like the scariest thing about Slender Man, I would say, is that he's scary in what he does to you. He himself is not scary. Unfortunately, they try to make Slender Man himself scary, and that doesn't work. He's just another boogeyman in this movie. Nothing interesting, and just another generic movie monster like so many others. That, and he looks awful. I made a review of this on Letterboxd, but I'll repeat, this bears repeating. He looks awful. And not only that, he never behaves the same way twice. And honestly, when your horror movie creature has no consistent rules, it can never be scary. That's a lesson from me to you guys. Alright, for number 10, we have The Cloverfield Paradox. Now, this was actually the first movie of 2018 that I ever watched. And at the time, I thought it was okay. It wasn't that bad, but I didn't think it was that great. But at the time, I didn't understand why people gave it so much scorn. I was like, okay, guys, this movie's not good, but it's not horrible, right? Well, after months and months and months, I finally got around to rewatching it. Those people are right. Really, the biggest thing that brings this movie down is just how horribly it's written. Like, there are innumerable plot holes. So many, I would need an entire list to point out every single one of them. And that's not counting the things that aren't really plot holes, but are rather just things that just aren't explained whatsoever. But this movie makes no sense. And even aside from the plot holes, it's just not that interesting of a movie. None of the characters are interesting, and I just don't care about any of them. That, and this movie is needlessly tried, like, I don't know why, but they try so hard to connect this to the actual Cloverfield universe. There's no reason for that. And a lot of that has to do with all the scenes with the main character's boyfriend down on Earth while bad stuff is going down. Those scenes didn't need to exist. Honestly, this whole movie doesn't need to exist. That ending doesn't need to exist. Well, with the Cloverfield monster popping up and be like, "Hey, I'm here. This is totally a Cloverfield movie, you guys. Don't forget about me." Yeah, well, too bad. Everybody forgot about this movie after it came out, and if you haven't, you should. Number 9, we have Terminal. Chances are you have not heard of this movie. It kind of flew under the radar. It didn't really get a wide release. There's a good reason for that. It's awful. So I do not understand what this movie is trying to do. I don't know. It's like half of it is like a story with Simon Pegg's character. He's tied to Margot Robbie's character. There's a whole thing about that. I won't spoil it. And there's a whole bunch of stories that run throughout this movie, and I didn't care about any of them. It's so shoddily edited. It's so confused. It's so confusing narratively, and it's just a total mess of a film. And the way they handle Margot Robbie's character is just so it's just so awful. And so not at all makes any sense. At one point, first you start the movie oh, maybe you're not supposed to kind of trust her character because she's kind of speaks out both sides of her mouth. She's kind of untrustworthy. She kind of plays for the other side while seemingly playing for your side. That kind of thing. Sort of Machiavellian, I suppose. But then, with the story for Simon Pegg's character, you're supposed to feel sorry for her. And then, I'll go ahead and give this away. She kills Mike Myers' character in a very brutal fashion. And then I'm supposed to be scared of her, I think. So, we go from not trusting her, then having sympathy for her, then being scared of her. This movie doesn't understand what it wants to do with her, and quite frankly, this is not a movie that understands what it wants to be. Okay, for number 8, we have Dark Crimes. I don't know why this movie exists. I don't know who made it. I don't know why. I understand why it got shelved for 2 years, but I don't understand why it got resurrected. This is not a movie that anybody wanted to see. They especially didn't want to see Jim Carrey like this. This whole movie has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 0%. And I understand why. It's so dull. It's so tedious. It's so hard to follow. It's so bland. It's so nothing. I don't understand why anybody even bothered with a movie like this. I mean, Jim Carrey is fine in the movie, but his talent is so completely wasted on a movie like this. And even worse, it is so horribly paced that just makes it even more boring. If you haven't seen this movie, you really shouldn't bother, even if you are a die-hard Jim Carrey fan. Okay, for number 7, we have The 15th, 17th to Paris. Oh, Clint Eastwood, why? How did you make a movie this bad? You're a good director. You're a good writer. Although you didn't write this movie. This was written by a first-timer. And, God, I can tell. I don't understand this. How this movie ended up turning out like this. Actually, no. I already answered my question. It's written by a first-timer. I will admire that they got the 3 guys who really participated in this event to actually be in the movie themselves. I admire that. You want some kind of realism in that sense. But as with Act of Valor, invoking realism does not make your movie good. Although this is so much worse than Act of Valor, and the acting's just as bad too. Although I will give props to the 3 main characters. They're honestly not that terrible. I totally expected them to be terrible, but honestly, they're a lot better compared to the actual professionals who all got hired to play all the other roles. They're all especially awful. Especially whoever it was that played Alex Scarlaro's mom. She is especially horrible. And it really doesn't help that a lot of this movie takes place just them vacationing in all across Europe. And most of that just feels like vacation footage, coupled in with meaningless dialogue that we don't care about, and like, oh, it's super deep, and whatnot. And especially with that one line in the trailer when they're on the rooftop. Honestly, this should have been. I think Clint Eastwood himself should have written this. He honestly could have told the story a lot better than Dorothy Bliskel, who actually wrote this movie. Alright, number 6, we have Truth or Dare. Easily the worst horror movie of the year, and easily probably the funniest bad movie of the whole year too. This is a movie based around the game of Truth or Dare. Do I even have to tell you more than that? Well, too bad. I'm going to tell you more than that. Like, the whole movie is just so laughably bad. Like, and all the characters are so stupid too. Like, they have to go through with either telling the truth or, of course, going through whatever dare the demon wants them to go along with. And they're also stupid about it too. And it really doesn't help that he reveals himself through big, wide grins like this, like it's a big Joker grin. It's so not scary. And it doesn't even make sense how it works either. Like, there's a shoehorn line in this movie about how demons can possess ideas. Aha, yeah, try. You really expect me to believe that movie? Yeah. What a pathetic justification. Also, the ending is just so completely awful too. I won't spoil it if you want to watch this movie for yourself. Maybe you should, because like I said, this is kind of a hilarious ride. Okay, for number 5, we have the movie that takes my Conjuring 2 award. That's the award I give to a movie that I think that, got a lot of praise from critics and audiences that I myself did not like whatsoever. 2018's winner of the Conjuring 2 award is Ready Player One. So to sum up my feelings on this movie, here's how I looked while watching the whole thing. That was my face the whole movie, because I just could not care. Like, I've never in my life have I ever cared so little about anything that was happening. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the story. I didn't care about the world. I didn't care about any of it. The story was so boring. The characters were so pathetically shallow and one note. It honestly doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The visuals are kind of headache-inducing. Even the one scene that people are actually giving praise to, where they're recreating The Shining, even that isn't so great, honestly, if you ask me. And there's a line in this movie that sums up the whole thing. One character references that famous Tootsie Pop commercial with the owl, and then another character. Actually, no, the same one character. Actually, no, how it goes is like a character references that commercial, and then they say, haha, you remember that commercial? That was great. That's the whole movie right there. That's the whole movie. Oftentimes, it'll throw a reference. Like, the story is so bland and the characters aren't interesting, but, look, it's the Iron Giant fighting Mechagodzilla. No, movie, you can't do that. You have to give me a story to be invested in, and characters I have to care about. And even if you can't give me that, at least be fun. But it's not fun. It's a chore to sit through. And honestly, I cannot believe Spielberg made a movie this bad. Alright, number 4, we have the last movie in the 50 Shades trilogy, 50 Shades Freed. Thank God that we're not getting any more of these movies, because I don't know if this is the worst 50 Shades movie, but if it isn't, it's at least tied for it. Because honestly, the story in this movie is terrible. The writing is just as terrible. The acting is just as terrible. It's just as boring as the other ones. The score is just as terrible. All the pop songs are just as terrible. It's just as terrible and awful as the rest of them. I don't even know, what am I supposed to say about this movie that I haven't said about the other 50 Shades movies? It's another 50 Shades of Grey movie. You know exactly what this is. I don't need to tell you anything else about it. you know that it's awful. For number 3, we have Show Dogs. I'm gonna look past the whole controversy about the scene that got cut out of theaters. Because honestly, this whole movie should not have been in theaters in the first place. This should have been some bottom of the bin, bargain bin rental movie that that parents would be tricked into for renting for their kids instead of actually giving them a good movie. Like, this is honestly one of the worst family movies, quote unquote, in some time. Like, this whole movie, this is made by the guy who made the 2 live-action Smurfs movies and Beverly Hills Chihuahua. If you have, for some reason, seen those movies, you know exactly what this is. It is horribly pandering to younger kids because parents don't know any better, and they think their kids they think their kids are stupid and don't have any standards. Well, I promise you, treat your kids better. Take them to a better movie than this. And it really doesn't help that this whole movie feels like it came out of the early 2000s. Right down to the font of the opening title sequence. Of the opening credits, I should say. That and the CGI is horrifying to look at. Jesus Christ, that's some nightmare fuel stuff right there. Okay, for number 2, we have Life Itself. I've never seen the show This Is Us. I don't know if it's any good or not. My mom likes it a lot. I'll take her word for it. But honestly, after having seen this movie, I don't want to watch the show made by the same guy. Because honestly, this has to be the most pretentious, most unbelievably pretentious, and most insipid movie of all of 2018. It's honestly a little insulting. It is basically 2018's Collateral Beauty, although it's not quite as bad as that movie. So I guess it has that going for it. Something else that's going for it is that the acting is actually not that bad. Everybody does a pretty decent job, considering the unbelievably terrible material they're working with. Because honestly, the whole movie thinks it's super meaningful and super thoughtful, but it's not. It's utterly shallow and full of just pathetic, shallow platitudes that it thinks are so inspiring that when it really isn't. Right down to the title, Life Itself. Oh, sure, yeah, this is totally about life. It tries to be, but it's written by someone who doesn't really understand what he's doing. Okay, for my number 1 pick for worst movie of 2018 is God's Not Dead 3: Light and Darkness. No, I'm just kidding, actually. For the first time since I've been doing these videos, a religious movie is actually not my number 1 pick. So no. So yeah, you probably thought it was going to be God's Not Dead 3, but I fooled you. No Christian propaganda this time. Although, I wouldn't really consider that movie so propagandist. But although for number 1, we do have a propaganda movie. It's Death of a Nation. Now, I, of course, put God's Not Dead 2 and Hillary's America both at number 1 for 2016. And of course, when I heard about this movie, I was like, well, this is going to be just like Hillary's America. In some way, isn't it? Wow, I really underestimated Dinesh D'Souza, because this is basically just the same as Hillary's America. So, really, I get right down to actually reusing footage from Hillary's America, too. So, really, this whole movie, what Dinesh tries to do, his thesis, I suppose, is basically, Donald Trump and Abraham Lincoln, they're just alike. In fact, he starts the movie and ends the movie like that. Here's what the actual movie... Here's what the rest of the movie is like, though. I can sum it up like this. The Democrats are the true racists. Also, they're like Nazis. That's the whole movie. That's pretty much the whole movie. Nothing but that. And of course, he never tries to back up anything he says. Because honestly, I don't think he cares to back up anything he says. Nothing he says makes any sense. Nothing he says has any proof to it. Nothing. And of course, some people compare him to a troll. Well, just because of how obviously bad this movie is. Well, I'll tell you this. A troll knows... Usually trolls tend to say things that they don't really believe, generally. a lot of the time, but I do think Dinesh D'Souza does genuinely believe the things he says. I could be wrong about that, maybe, but I'm not giving him that kind of credit. What this is horribly made, horribly horrible, insipid, stupid, not at all provable propaganda. Which is that's honestly kind of redundant. It's a propaganda movie for people who love Donald Trump. And honestly, if you just don't watch this movie, I hope if he makes I know he'll make another documentary, quote unquote. And honestly, I bet it'll be just like this movie. Or heck, maybe it'll be like one of his other movies that no one else has actually watched. Okay. Well, there you have it. My top 15 worst movies for 2018. Thank you guys for watching again. Here's hoping 2019 is hopefully I can actually see as many movies from 2018. Well, as many movies in 2019 as I did for 2018. I doubt it, but I know I'll try. So once again, if you want to see a full list of every movie from 2018 that I watched, ranked in order from best to worst, come back to this video after the Oscars, check that description, and I'll have a link to that list. Okay, well, that's it for me. I will see you guys later. Take care.